Hi, and welcome to the Changing Perspectives podcast, the show where we discuss a variety of topics, including grief, parenting, relationships, mental health, and pop culture. Join us and explore a number of changing perspectives. We're your hosts, Jenni and Josh Brennan. Hi, Jenni.
Hi.
You look cold today.
I'm freezing.
You have your post-workout chill? Is that what it is?
I did leg day today, so I'm really cold. And also it's September, almost October, so even though it's like 80 outside, my brain thinks I should be cold.
Yeah. It was chilly this morning when I brought Jackson to school.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 97.
Oh,
97.
That's the year I graduated.
It is the year you graduated. It's the year before I graduated.
True.
Yeah.
It would have been the year you graduated if you didn't stay back in kindergarten.
That's enough of that. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to bring that up. Hey, everybody, if you haven't done so, you got to sign up for Jenni's newsletter. Head on over to changingperspectivesonline.com, where you can sign up for the newsletter and also check out the shop. We have all kinds of cool fall merchandise.
And Halloween.
And football.
And football.
Happy fall, y'all. Don't forget, you can find the changing...
as you're talking, I will look and see when our next sale is.
Oh, that'd be great.
I'm bad at promoting our sales.
Like hot off the presses information.
Yeah, I'm not good at... We don't get to pick when the sales are. Our supplier, right? Is that their
vendor? Our vendor.
It chooses them, and we have a little flexibility.
Yeah.
But they don't tell us when. I have to go and look. So I will try to do that while you're doing whatever it is that you're doing.
All the housekeeping stuff. Don't forget, you can find us on the Helium Radio Network, Mondays, 6:30 Eastern, on the Life Improvement Channel, replays of the Changing Perspectives podcast. We're recording this on the Monday. I listened to us this morning. This episode will come out on Tuesday, September 28th, so you can catch this episode next Monday at 6:30. Also, if you haven't already known, we are brought to you by BetterHelp.com. That's BetterHelp.com. BetterHelp is an online counseling resource who makes professional counseling accessible, affordable, and convenient. They offer 4 ways to get licensed counseling through video sessions, phone call, live chat, and messaging. As everyone knows all too well, the past year and a half has been challenging to say the least. And if you're a Patriots or Buccaneers fan, the last 24 hours have been challenging as well. And
why did the Bucks lose?
Yes. Yeah, it was.
The Rams won.
The Rams won.
I'm officially a Rams fan.
Matthew Stafford went off. He was unbelievable. But you know what? You know what's good though? The Chiefs lost, and that makes me happy.
Because you don't like Patrick Mahomes?
I don't. Well, no. Yeah, I don't like the Chiefs. Okay. You can't not like Patrick Mahomes. He's incredible.
I don't like him.
But I don't like the Chiefs. They lost, and I'm happy about that.
I think he's a little full of himself, but I don't really know things.
Okay. We got off track.
You were in the middle of a live read, and
sorry.
I just derailed that for you. Sorry, you did, though.
The broad expertise of the BetterHelp Counselor Network could provide anyone struggling with life's challenges the help they need, anytime or anywhere. Whatever you're facing and whatever struggles, whether it's depression, grief and loss, anxiety, BetterHelp.com can provide you the counselor that's the right fit. In fact, when you head on over to betterhelp.com/changingperspectives, you can fill out a survey so they can match you with a mental health professional that will meet your needs. Listen, you may not have access to the help you need where you're at. BetterHelp allows you the opportunity to access resources from all over. Visit betterhelp.com/changingperspectives. After signing up, you'll be matched with a counselor in 24 hours or less. Again, visit betterhelp.com/changingperspectives. Jenni, did you find information out about our sale?
No, I can't remember my login. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Oh, that's nice.
I was using the wrong email address, so I'm trying all my passwords now.
That's okay. You have a bunch of passwords.
Just trying the slew of them.
I apologize if folks can hear my coffee, but I'm drinking a delicious cold brew from our local favorite smoothie place.
Oh, we can shout them out for anyone who's local.
Yeah, local to Massachusetts, the South Shore. MS Better Nutrition, located in East Bridgewater.
They're the Club
best.
X.
The Club X. Well, now everyone knows where we work out.
Well, okay. Well, if they want to come see me being disgusting and gross, that's where you can find me. And if you want to see me falling off a pull-up machine, I should be back on that next week. I think I'm going to give it a try.
Oh, my goodness, for real?
Yeah, I have to. I can't. Like if you get in a car accident, you have to get back in the car and drive again. If you fall off a horse, you have to get back on the horse.
True.
Although I've only ridden a horse twice. I'm all set with that. And I did. Do you remember what happened when I rode a horse? Well, maybe it was a pony at a carnival. Maybe.
I don't think that counts.
Am I just combining one time?
Probably.
In Colorado?
We went horseback riding in Colorado, which was so fun.
Yeah, like the Garden of the Gods, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then through a neighborhood.
Yeah, that was weird.
And do you remember what my horse did?
Went fast.
No, he knocked someone's rearview mirror off.
Oh my God, that's right.
He like banged into a car.
Oh man.
And the instructor was like, just keep going.
You know what? That horse did not worry about being perfect. Perfection wasn't important to that horse. And Jenny, did you like that transition?
That was an interesting transition. Yeah. I still can't remember my password because
that's okay.
I am far from perfect.
Pay attention to the websites and all our socials for the next sale. We should have one coming up.
I think we actually had. We may have just missed one.
Of course, we always miss them.
I know. But I have I have the password saved on my computer, so I'll be able to log in on the computer.
Okay. Well, we kind of derailed my transition.
Sorry.
It was a nice transition.
Trying to not be perfect.
Yeah. Anyway, today is a Myths About episode. We haven't done one of these in a hot minute, but this is going to be Myths About Perfection.
Okay.
Because is perfection real?
Well, perfection is a myth. So this is a myths about the myth of perfection?
Myths about perfection. Perfection is a myth. What is the definition of perfection, Jenny?
Jenny Brennan. No, I'm just kidding. Version 1.0.
Yeah. I actually
don't know the definition.
I have Oxford's definition.
When you try to do everything without error?
Very close, yeah. So the condition states a noun. The condition, state, or quality of being free or as free as possible from flaws or defects. Or a person or thing perceived as the embodiment of perfection, or the action or process of improving something until it is faultless or as faultless as possible.
Okay.
So that's the definition of perfection.
How many things... I have no idea what your plan is for this.
I just have a bunch of stuff that I looked up, but we didn't.
Okay.
There's no format here.
This topic, I think, has been floating around for like, I don't know, a year.
6 months. I prepped this sheet, this note sheet like a year ago.
Okay. And I don't look at Josh's note sheets before.
No, you don't.
No.
You used to. At the very beginning, we like collaborated.
Yeah, I don't do that now.
Yeah.
Now it's just... Like if I'm giving a lecture, I don't give the lecture ahead of time. I mean, I maybe jot down some notes if I'm lecturing, but I don't. It's better when it's just sort of off the cuff.
I don't think anybody likes didactic presentations at all. I think everybody likes a more conversational, like give and take format. You know. I know I don't. I don't know.
I think there are some people that are more traditional that. I know I had students recently that were like, why don't you lecture? Because you watch lectures all week. Because I teach online and it's a flipped classroom. So they watch lectures from other instructors all week. And then when we meet online, where it's like a lab and we're working on what they learned.
That's good.
They're not paying for me to come lecture them about the lectures they already watched or the readings they already did. Nope, you know it already. Let's process it.
And I'd like to think
some people do like that.
Well, I like to think folks tune into the Changing Perspectives podcast to hear us go back and forth.
Well, I don't.
And not just one of us.
Yeah, I don't
give a lecture.
I don't listen to podcasts. I don't even listen to ours.
It's not because you don't like them, because you don't have time.
I don't drive.
And you don't drive.
And when I do drive, I actually prefer to drive in silence now. It's just like my time. But when I drive, if I listen to a podcast, I zone out. Although I did listen to one the other day about the Dixie Fires, and that was interesting to me.
The daily,
yeah. Like a little one. But I don't like just listening to one person talk.
Yes.
So, all right. So that was a roundabout way. I don't know where I was going. What was I saying?
I'm not really sure. I forget what you're saying.
We've been talking about this for a long time.
We have.
And I think a lot of my content recently has been about perfectionism because I think, well, school's back in session and life is sort of normal-ish again. And so I think the pressures of being perfect are back, or at
Well,
least
they really are.
more prevalent.
They really are. We see that across the board from, as a sports parent, as a coach, as a professional,
As
a
a parent of
podcaster.
students.
Yeah.
Because now we're back to, so I've also been thinking about this as a parent because the notifications for our kids' grading system were off on my phone. I must have shut them off at the end of the school year.
Yeah. Which was smart.
Last year. But I didn't turn them back on. I thought they were on. And so one of our students texted the other day and said, "Oh my God, that grade. I'm so sorry. Nobody in the class did good." And I was like, "What's he talking about?" And I went and I looked, and I won't share what the grade was, but lowest grade for this child ever.
Yeah. We'll get to tell everybody what class this is.
Well, then it gives away what child it is. It's a very advanced class.
Okay.
And so then I turned my notifications back on, and then I felt guilt. And then I started getting all of the notifications anytime he turned something in. And so now it's on for both kids. Anytime they turn something in, anytime something, was late because one of their teachers says, your homework isn't really due until the test day.
Yeah.
But until the test day, if you don't turn in your homework, everything's marked late. But then if you turn it in, it's not. So everything they did, and every time a teacher graded something, I got instant notification of it. They do too. But I thought, gosh, this feels bad.
Yeah.
Like it's great on some level that I know in real time what they're doing, but I feel like it puts a whole lot of pressure on them.
Yeah.
And I find myself being like, wanting to ask, like, what happened with this one? Why did you get a 96?
Yeah.
Right? Like that perfectionist student in me starts coming out. And then when he got like a 100 on a test, I said to myself, like, oh, that's great. This was all within like a 3-hour time span because all of the teachers must have been grading on Friday.
Yeah.
All within like a 3-hour time span. And then when one came in that was like 100, I was like, great, that's what he is because they're both very bright. And then I almost didn't text him about that one. And I realized I need to not just text about where he could improve, but also text about what he's doing really well. But all of that centers around sending this message of perfection.
They do. I feel bad for our two boys.
Period.
Well, because their mother was a valedictorian times 2.
Right.
And I was no slouch. I was in the National Honor Society and graduated number 6 in my class.
But the first time I was because I felt like I had to be. Like I was desperately trying to be perfect for attention and so I could get scholarships to school. And it was rewarded, right? Because I got a full scholarship to my undergraduate program.
Yep.
But I wasn't happy. I was miserable. And had all that pressure on myself. And I remember in college, I at some point shifted. I started going to therapy. That's what it was. Started therapy. I don't think I started antidepressants in college. I think I didn't start until grad school. I think it was just therapy. But I started doing yoga and working out, and living on my own. And then I realized, like, I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to get an A on everything. And instead, I decided to just do my best and not focus on being the best. And that was like a shift for me in my thinking.
Yeah.
And I still was valedictorian of college, but not because I was trying to be the best, but because I was trying to do my best.
Yeah.
And I went to a very, very small college. Like maybe I graduated with 100 people. It was very small. So I try to make that distinction with our kids. I don't need you to be the best. I just need you to do your best. And I know that, in certain classes, maybe your best is a B. But in other classes, I know your best right now is an A.
I think that's an important distinction. But it still feels like there's a lot of pressure on them.
It is.
Because it's easier to not do your best. Sure. Right? It's easier to, take take a test off or not study the hardest you can. Plus, they're busy. I mean, especially the high school athlete. Like,
Right.
that's just his schedule is just crazy.
Right.
He wouldn't want it any different, and he's having a great season. But it's still a lot. I thought this quote, I want to come back to you a little bit because you had a really, really well worded and real TikTok video about perfectionism.
Oh, thank you. I'm trying to be back on the TikTok.
Yeah, check out Changing Perspectives, the Changing Perspectives on TikTok.
That's right.
But yeah, Jenny's video about that was important. And I think I definitely want to come back to that. But I pulled a quote from Winston Churchill, actually, which I thought was like very apropos. He said,
I think I quoted him in my high school graduation speech.
oh, really?
I think nope. I think it was an FDR quote.
How
Might be
good
wrong.
was John Lithgow as
That's
Winston
funny,
Churchill
that's what I thought of too.
in The Crown? So Winston Churchill said, perfection is the enemy of progress. What do you think about that, Jenny?
I think that's true. I mean, when you are trying so hard to do something perfectly or be perfect, then you're really not giving yourself space to progress and move forward.
Right. I guess so you grow out of mistakes, right?
Yeah, I think like even if we look at the body, right? The human body, like when you're lifting weights and stuff like that, it's you're breaking down the muscles, I think, right? To sort of build.
Yeah.
That is where the greatest change happens, right? When we're uncomfortable, that is when we're basically learning the most important lessons.
When I'm training,
not that being perfect is comfortable, but maybe
right.
it is. Maybe it does give the illusion.
Success is comfortable, and it's how you define success, I guess. Is success being perfect, or do you feel accomplished?
I think society presents that message.
Yeah, for sure.
That like to be successful, you have to be perfect.
I have a question for you, but first I want to share something that I use at work when I'm training, new people. As some of the best practices were born out of the worst mistakes, right?
That is true.
Like you learn from something and you're like, I'm never going to do that this way again. And it ends up becoming, a best practice. And you can share what you learned with, people that you're coaching or training. But I'm going to ask you a question that I probably know the answer to. Perfection is the enemy of progress. So how hard is it for people to realize that on their own, like in a therapy setting?
I think it's really hard for folks to realize that are on their own. Who doesn't struggle with that is this special cat over here.
Let's remove her from the studio. What do you think?
This cat has learned how to print test pages on our printer.
You need to share a video on the TikToks.
Oh, I haven't done it on TikTok. Can y'all hear? She just
pulled the mic. Can you pull the mic down a little bit?
I think she's scanning something this time.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, she's figured out that if she steps on the printer in a certain way, it makes a page come out of the printer. And so she's decided to do that. Sorry.
Will you hand her to me? Oh, here she is.
I'm not touching her.
I'll put her.
Don't give her attention. The question.
Yes.
Is that
how hard is it for people to realize that in like a therapy setting? Do you see that with the patients?
I see it maybe in all of my patients and myself and my friends. Because we're constantly getting messages to be perfect, right? Like, I don't know, maybe it's different for men. But for women in particular, I think especially like moms, if you're on social media, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, not so much Twitter, because Twitter really truly is a cesspool. But I'm on there if you want to find me. But there's people who are posting like perfectly curated photos and stories of how their day went, right? And so it gives this impression that like, there's something wrong with me if I just had a baby a day ago and I'm not in a full face of makeup and smiling and telling the world that this is like the best thing ever, right? So there's all these like messages to be perfect.
Yeah. Well, and those like fitness before and after pictures that aren't really before and afters.
What do you mean? They're not
like
before and afters?
Like there's a bunch of like, cause I'm on a lot of fitness, social media groups and stuff since
Were you taking pictures today at the gym?
I did.
You
But
looked so weird.
no. I took it to show Keith, my friend Keith.
Were you taking like a selfie video?
No, just a selfie.
Oh, okay.
Because he goes, "Where are you?" And I texted a picture.
Oh, I looked
Anyway.
over and I was like, "Who is taking a selfie?"
No.
My husband.
I wasn't taking.
Okay.
Oh, full disclosure, I have taken fitness videos, but it's more so about sharing my journey and also showing my my expert son how my deadlift form was and asking
all right.
him.
That's because you guys don't get to go to the gym.
No, and I am sharing my journey. I've lost some weight and basically back on track, and I'm happy to share that with Instagram.
Well, and I think you're sharing it in a non-perfect way, right? Not to call out
100%.
anybody by names, but not like those people at the gym last week that you saw who literally took 45 minutes. And
Taking
then we saw their
pictures.
30-second clip of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And they did
Getting the
maybe
perfect
like
angle and
one workout.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's a lot of those, like, it's almost like peek behind the scenes, kind of like revealing that some people, the way they can take their pictures isn't real. It's like,
Oh, right.
staged or,
Right. Like some people are really good with angles. And so they take cleverly positioned shots of themselves. And you're like,
using downlighting or whatever. I don't even know what downlighting is.
I don't know. My photos aren't that way. But then you look at them online and you're like, God, I feel so awful about myself. Like, look at, they're killing it. And then sometimes you see them in person and you're like, oh. So the online stuff isn't
You're
real.
pretty good at taking pictures.
Why not just take a
But
real
I think
picture?
you need to spend some more time in the gym.
No, that's really mean. But also, but also you're putting out a phony image of yourself,
exactly.
right?
That's
so
what
you're sort of contributing to like this perfection, this pressure of perfection. Like, why not just take a real photo of yourself and be like, hey, I just worked out and this is my real body.
Yeah. Here's all my sweat and my real body.
Yeah.
And this
you
is
know
what
who's
I'm working
really good
on,
about that is Get Burly.
Yes.
Which I think all of their social media is Get Burly. GetBurly.
LY.
Our friend Mikey.
Getburly.com.
Yeah. Our friend Mikey and his wife, Ashley. Ashley's really good when she posts on Get Burly about, she'll post like a great picture. And then side by side with that, we'll post her the same exact day, same exact time, just a different angle. I really appreciate when people are honest like that. And I try to be that way in my writing, especially on Facebook and with my micros. Like, in fact, I think I have one scheduled for tonight. It's about like, when like not everything's perfect.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's important to say that.
Absolutely.
I get pushback sometimes. Like, why are you say that? Like, why are you being honest? Because I think a lot of people aren't honest. And so there's pressure that
respond to that.
So many people. I get so many messages. And thank yous for like being real, because it's important, I think, that we remind each other that it's okay to not only is it okay to not be perfect, but we're never going to be perfect.
Right.
At anything.
Where does this come from, Jenny? Like, where does this need for perfection come from? And I do have...
Oh, I might have an answer. I haven't ever really thought about this. I might have an answer, but it's kind of controversial.
Well, I think my answer that I did some research on connects to your experience and sort of what you talked about in that TikTok. Freud and his psychoanalytic theory says it comes from early childhood experiences.
Well, Freud says everything comes
And
from your early
perceptions,
childhood
right.
experience. Like anything. If you said, hey, Freud, where does this come from? His answer is always unequivocally going to be childhood.
So as a child, we develop perfectionist tendencies as adaptations to deal with demands of friends or family. Or there's some folks that think it's hereditary and you've got these innate personality traits. But of course, Freud connects it to early childhood experiences. So what do you think about that? I mean, you talked about that
so
in
I
your
agree
TikTok.
with that. I guess I sort of feel like that's obvious, right? Like I feel like a lot of our patterns that we have as individuals, they come out of our childhood experiences and they come from whoever our primary adult was, whether that's a parent or a teacher or a caregiver or a family member like a grandmother or something, or sometimes it's an older sibling who's our primary person. But our early childhood experiences are all about like us as infants or babies or toddlers doing something accidentally,
Right.
and then learning from our environment or the people in our environment,
Mhm.
whether that was right or wrong, and how to like please the people around us to feel a sense of attachment. So yes, so I absolutely, it comes from that. I guess I took the question on a bigger level, like where does that come from? Like why do our caregivers
Right.
sort of value perfection?
Right.
Because I think if you have caregivers that value perfection more than others, those children probably are going to have more pressure around being perfectionists than others who don't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was thinking like on a larger scale, where does that come from?
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, obviously there's so much that we get from our early childhood experiences. Hey, a loud pit bull. Everett. Okay. Thank you, bud. Yeah. But there's a couple articles that I pulled for this episode. I'm going to talk about one in a moment. But what about issues now? So, we don't really know where it comes from as far as our caregivers, but we know that it starts maybe in early childhood, this need for perfection. But this continues now, like we've been talking about social pressure. Even in something like mindfulness, where I want to practice mindfulness. I want to meditate. I want to be mindful of that. It's good for you, but also I feel like that act of improving yourself, there's so much pressure for that to be perfect. Like you have to be really good at meditation, or you have to be good at like perfect at your mindfulness activity. Like in these wellness programs that was part of the inspiration for this episode. And I don't mind shouting it out. We can shout out 75 Hard. We can do that.
Right.
The perception of perfection is perpetuated by what's around us and what we see every day. And when we try to improve ourselves, but if we don't do it perfect, we fail, we're failures. And that's the whole element of that program that I tried to do.
Well, I don't think that the element isn't that you're a failure, but it's sort of similar to like classical piano training, right? Like,
sure.
So I'm a classically trained pianist.
Mm-hmm.
You are not.
I am not.
But all of that,
I'm the opposite.
I am not any good because I haven't been in a while. And
Jenny's
because
a pretty good piano player, just so everybody knows.
I
She'll
used to
never
be.
say that she was good.
I used to be, but I was trained with like classical methods where like if you're doing your scales and your sort of rudimentary exercises, you do them like all the way through like 4 times, and they have to be perfect. If you mess up once, you start those 4 times over again. Like it's perfection drilled into your head. That movie we watched about the drummer.
Yeah. Whiplash.
Whiplash, right? Like that whole like that instructor, it's all about perfection. Sometimes maybe there is a benefit to being perfect, right? Tom Brady, probably a pretty big perfectionist, right? Everything is precision and precise and perfect. And that's playing out well for him. I'm curious what it's like to be his children.
That's a whole other episode.
Growing up in that environment. I forget what the actual question was there. Was there a question?
Well, about like the element of failure, because I tried that program
75 Hard, which was kind of like a classical. It reminded me of classical music training.
Yeah, because you had to start over.
Yes, you had to do 75 days, and every day you did 2 workouts of 45 minutes each. At least one was outside, and you had to follow some diet. You were open to whatever you wanted. Gallon of water a day, and no sugar or alcohol, or just no alcohol?
No alcohol and no cheating.
Right. So you pick a diet and you stick to it. And if you miss a workout, if you miss an outside workout, say it's a
Not even miss a whole one. Like if you did 45 minutes inside and 40 minutes outside, you start over.
You start over with the 75 days.
Yes.
And so when you started that, I was like, no.
I don't know what Everett's eating over there. He's eating an old braces
Oh,
yours.
great. He wants to get his smile. I'm doing Smile Direct.
I'll go get it.
So
You
Everett
can
is
keep
eating one of my
talking.
old aligner sets
Everett.
to see if he can make his teeth perfect. When you started that 75-day hard program, I was like, I am against this program because it perpetuates this myth of perfection so much so that like I feel like it's sort of set up to make you feel worse.
Well,
Because
and
not everybody, I'm actually curious what the rates are. How many people that say they're going to do 75 hard, how many people actually do it all the way through? And,
but how do we know that they did?
well, okay, it doesn't matter. I mean, okay.
They could have.
How many people say they did it?
Right. I
It doesn't
don't-
even
I
matter
mean-
to me if they did it or not. And of those people that, okay, so different question. How many people can't say they did it? Of all of those people that didn't do it, how do they feel about themselves after failing versus when they started? Because I'm going to guess they probably feel worse.
And that is the language. That's the verbiage people use. I failed.
Yeah, but you
I
did
failed
it.
day 10. I failed day 45. I failed day whatever, and then gotta go back. This is the third time I've tried. Like, and I guess for me, I failed, quote unquote, 75 hard, but it sparked a journey in me that I'm still on, and I've been successful. I've lost a ton of weight.
But you
and
were in therapy and on antidepressants and married to a therapist who was
100%.
providing
Yes.
you support around the fact that
I just need to say that my therapist also disagreed with 75 hard.
yeah.
Just like you did.
That's right. I remember
Yeah,
that session
yeah,
you
yeah.
told me about it. I was like, yeah, well, because it's based in
Sustainable.
perfectionism.
Yeah.
And so it's not sustainable. And so it's designed to make you feel worse about yourself. And listen, so much of the self-help culture I know right now, social media, and I think it's Netflix, is all against MLM, multi-level market, MLMs, right? Like the
Yes.
LuLaRoe stuff that's going on.
Yep.
Which I haven't watched
There's a
the documentary,
documentary,
but I
yeah.
want to.
I want to too.
But everyone is coming down hard on those right now. I think what's going to happen next is people are going to start really coming down hard on the self-help industry. They kind of already are with, what's her name? The girl who did Girl Wipe Your Face. Can't remember
I
her.
don't know. I know
But
who
they
you're talking
rightfully
about,
did
but I
come down on her
yeah.
because she's very much from a point of, comes from a place, she doesn't check her own privilege. And it's pretty phony. But the whole self-help industry, I won't say the whole, a lot of the self-help industry, all the self-help books, the pages, I guess I could say I'm sort of part of that industry, right? Is built on the premise that the people are not going to be able to complete to perfection the programs and the suggestions you put out there, which is going to make them feel worse, which then makes them want to buy more
Come
self-help,
back,
right?
yeah.
So it's this like unhealthy cycle. So when you asked a while ago, where does this come from? Yeah, it comes from our childhood, but it's also perpetuated by this like greater societal pressure to
Right.
be perfect. And I don't even think Americans are the worst, right? Like if we look at cultures like Japan, where perfectionism and like saving face for your family is so important
It's paramount.
that suicide is actually encouraged if you let that down. If you're not perfect, that's a very blanket statement, but historically and culturally,
Right.
there's truth to that. I mean, this is sort of a larger societal systemic issue about perfection. And what do you do when there's a system that is unhealthy? You have to sort of shine light on it and talk
Yeah.
about it and sort of unapologetically say none of us are perfect and it's okay.
Yeah. So I want to talk
In real
about
life.
that phrase for a minute, because that's a common like saying, nobody's perfect. But do people actually believe that? And what do
No.
people mean when they say that? Is that like, do they actually believe it? Or is that something that says, oh, I messed up, nobody's perfect, or that person messed up? Nobody. Is that something that people say to make others feel better, themselves feel better? Because I think the solution, if there is a solution, is that people actually need to believe that.
Yeah, well, it's hard to believe that when you're still getting messages every day that you are supposed to be perfect. You're supposed to have the perfect body and feed your kids the perfect meals and have the perfectly behaved kids and have kids who don't make mistakes and have a perfectly curated garden and lawn and have a perfect social media presence and have a perfect relationship and have perfect skin and no wrinkles and plump enough lips, like all of that. Like we're still fed all these messages that you're not perfect, but here's a way to kind of get a little more perfect, right? Buy this skin cream, buy these jeans, buy this shirt.
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, I feel like we have conversations as a family a lot about, well, maybe perfectionism, but we don't necessarily define it as that.
What do you mean?
Like, I don't know, we had some arguments last night, and we ended up
Fun times,
the four of us, and then we ended up having like a real raw conversation, and then there was laughing in there too, and I think that we're not perfect, but we're real, and I would so much rather the relationship that we have with our two boys over a fake, perfect quote unquote one. You know what I mean? Like we're able to have real conversations, and I love my parents, but not to badmouth my childhood. But I didn't ever have the real raw conversations that we have with our boys.
I don't know that anybody, I don't want to say anybody. I think it was really uncommon in the generation that we grew up in for that to happen, because we were raised by boomers, right?
Yeah.
The baby boomers, and the baby boomers were raised by a generation,
the greatest generation,
which was all about like, suck it up, buttercup, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, don't cry, especially if you're a boy, don't cry, don't talk back, I'll give you something to cry about, right? And just shut up, spare the rod, spoil the child, all that stuff, right? And like this patriarchy too, right? That like men are more important than women, and the woman's, I think we've all seen it, right? Like the actual like guide from 1952 about how to be, maybe it's not 52, how to be the perfect wife. Like make sure you have your husband's cocktail ready for him, and make sure that your hair looks pretty and you have lipstick on.
All those TV shows and commercials and ads and stuff.
So our youngest, Jacob, is one of the smartest humans ever, like far smarter than us. And he has this really interesting way of looking at the world. And so yesterday, him and I fell into this conversation, like this deep conversation, which is what happens if you spend time with him. And it was about music. And we were talking about like this genre of music that I don't like any music from. And it is from like the 50s and early 60s, like the soda shop. Like you go and you get a Coke, I don't know, what's that? Like a float.
Yeah.
Like a root beer float, or you sit at like
Italian soda or something.
Yeah, and you sit there and you're like poodle skirts and all that music. I was like, I hate all of that music.
Ooh,
and he's like
Richie Valens, Buddy Holly, that kind of stuff.
Okay. He said, I'm going to find a song that you like. I was like,
I walked in on this conversation. It was funny.
This is a flawless system of thought I have. I don't like any of that, because it for me evokes this image of a really fake, phony time where like the women go to school, but they're really supposed to look pretty for the boys, and they're going to get married really young and keep a perfect house and put their hair up in curls at night, and like Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, right? So the images at the beginning, the first season where she
gets up early.
Well, she goes to bed after she's in full face, full makeup, full hair. She doesn't go to sleep. She pretends to go to sleep like that. Once her husband falls asleep, she actually gets up, washes her face, does her hair, goes to sleep, not looking normal, and then gets up earlier than him, so he never sees her without her makeup or her hair. Like that was that sort of societal pressure back then. And so anytime I hear that music, that's what I think. Like, I just don't like it. Like, I don't, because it's not real. And I think our perfection today stems from that, because that generation grew up and those were the values that were instilled in them. And so they raised their children. Are there outliers? Yes, of course. But like societally in America, that generation raised their children that way. And then now here we are. Struggling, like a lot of us, with perfection. And you can see that in the millennials. So there's a lot of stuff on TikTok lately about millennials and their need or their pressure about being perfect in the workplace.
Right.
And it's interesting. So I think it all stems from that. And I think on a larger scale, it probably stems a lot of it from religion. There I go. I said it.
You did. I agree.
Well, I mean, we're here in the Northeast. We're from like the North Shore is Puritans, like, so it's puritanical, and the South Shore is the Pilgrims.
Mm-hmm.
But like, that's our culture here.
Yeah.
And then the Irish Catholics came over. So it was all about like repressing your feelings, repressing your emotions, looking perfect, living without sin, being the perfect Christian, perfect wife, perfect husband.
Yep.
And that was, hundreds of years ago. And this is still what we're sort of cleaning up right now.
Yeah. And it was 100 years ago, but it's
hundreds of years,
but it sustained itself through all that time.
Right.
In a big way. One of the articles I looked at was from Psychiatry Online, and they talk about perfection myth being nuclear to the specific trait of perfectionism. Like the control myth, it is out of conscious awareness, is powerful and enduring, and reduces anxiety by blocking the perception of vulnerability. And it too may have far-reaching, damaging consequences. So they give an example of a perfection myth. It says, I can and must always perform with flawless competence, make the right choice or decision, excel in everything that counts, and never be found wrong about anything. I can be and should be above criticism in every important personal attribute, including my values, attitudes, and opinions. Thus, I can guarantee myself fail-safe protection against failure, criticism, rejection, and humiliation, any of which would be unbearable. I mean, there it is.
Did I write that?
Right there. No.
No, I know. I didn't write that, but it was like in my head.
I was like, no. Did I get it wrong?
So my perfectionism past, I'm a recovering perfectionist.
I like that.
Truly am. Because last week, I know.
Maybe that can be the title of this episode.
Okay.
Because I am one too, actually.
Okay.
What?
We'll unpack that in a minute.
Uh-oh.
I don't think you are at all.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll just sit here and sip my cold brew.
The other day I had to do.
I guess I just mean about fitness.
Okay. The other day am halfway through my Smile Direct, so it's like kind of fake Invisalign. So they're like I'm explaining it for their listeners, not you. I had braces when I was in high school, and then because my brain wasn't fully developed because I was in high school, I didn't wear my retainer, and so my teeth shifted, and they've really bothered me a lot. And Smile Direct is relatively inexpensive, and I was a candidate for putting my teeth back to where they used to be.
Maybe they can pay us for an ad.
It's just a series of like 12 different kind of like clear plastic aligners that you just fit over your teeth and you wear them. I don't wear them when we're recording because it does give me even more of a lisp than I already have.
Yeah.
Anyways, halfway through, they sent me a message last week saying like, hey, it's time for you to send us some photos and we can check your progress. And so I did, and I sent the progress, and then I got an email back saying like, ooh, you're not really progressing the way we want you to. We're going to send you out some more molds so we can get you different aligners because we want your teeth to be shifting a little bit more. And I feel like I did something bad. Like I struggled for a few hours because I was like, I just feel like I got an F on a test. Like I still go back to.
It's nothing to do with
that.
you.
I know, but like that pathway in my brain is so like well laid down that like, oh, you're not perfect. It must be your fault.
Yeah.
Right. Rather than like, okay, no one's perfect. Even the people that made the align, right? Like ultimately they made the wrong aligners for me and they didn't shift the way that they were supposed to, even though there's been progress. It's not my fault. I wear them.
Exactly.
I'm doing everything right. But my immediate go-to, my core belief about myself is that there's something wrong with me because I'm not perfect. Even though I'm out here talking about it, even though I'm working really hard on myself to not be perfect, I'm not perfect. And so my perfectionism still comes out.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Right. So
absolutely.
That was like, I felt it in my soul, like, oh, something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And it's nothing I did wrong. But I think that there's a lot of us out there.
Absolutely.
Like that.
The last article I wanted to share for today was from tinybuddha.com by an author and life coach by the name of Jen Hand, who writes, I was terrified to make a mistake and required excellence in every task. I was afraid of others judging me. I didn't see it in my mistakes as I didn't see it, my mistakes, as learning experiences. I saw them as a way of others seeing what I didn't want them to see, that I was flawed, imperfect, and somehow not enough. And I think that is it right there. The myth of perfection. If we had to define it, it would be thinking that you're flawed, imperfect, and not enough.
Yeah. That
And yeah,
we're only enough if we are perfect.
right.
But
how hard is it to give up on that?
well, that's what
It's
I'm saying.
got to be the hardest thing in the world.
This is what I do professionally, right? Like, not only do I talk about this a lot in therapy sessions, but I write about it. I record videos about it. I try to talk about it with my kids. And still, my aligners need to be corrected, and I take that as like I'm a failure.
Yeah.
That's the problem with perfection, is that it is so deeply ingrained for so many of us. And there are so many things that are part of our day to day that reinforce that. But
Right.
if we don't work really, really hard at it, we're just going to stay stuck in that perfection myth.
The name of Jen's article is Why Striving for Perfection is Actually Holding You Back. And I highly recommend this article to anybody listening to today's episode. She actually has these three main points that I wanted to go over with you, Jenny. And this will be how we close out the episode. I think we're getting towards the end of our time.
Okay.
Number one, she writes, perfection isn't attainable.
Yeah.
Why we try so hard to achieve an ideal in our lives that is next to impossible. There really is no perfect body, perfect job, perfect life. It is impossible to have our lives be happy, joyous, and 100% problem free. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I guess I'm hard pressed to think, is there a situation in which anything or one can be perfect? And I think maybe Tom Brady is the closest to that. But is he ever going to be perfect? I mean, he gets sacked. He
lost yesterday.
He's a human,
Yeah.
right? So even if he executes everything the right way, you can't control everything, right? So this perfection also sort of blends in with the sort of myth of control. We don't have a lot of things in life that we actually have control over.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot that's just chance or luck, or, is based on a number of factors sort of clicking into place at the right exact moment, right?
Right.
But I think we could spend a whole other hour talking about perfectionism in youth sports or high school sports, right?
Yep.
Like I don't care. I am who I am. One of the coaches for one of our children publicly said, had a really great time at the game today. That coach wasn't coaching this game, but is a coach of those kids. Had a great time watching the game today. So great to see the kids continue to improve. That, oh my God, I'm being attacked by a cat right now.
I have to take a picture.
I'm going to take a picture of it. Oh, she's gone now. She just jumped on my shoulder. Oh, she's scratching me. Oh my God. Hi.
What are you doing?
You have something to say? Okay. So great to see the kids improve. This team is undefeated, right? Like, you are perpetuating a myth of perfection when you say that publicly on social media.
They haven't lost yet.
They haven't lost yet.
Yeah.
Like, they're the junior varsity team. The varsity team hasn't had a win yet. The junior varsity team hasn't had a loss yet, and they've dominated all three of their games. And your first public comment about the JV team is, it's nice to see you improving.
Improving from what?
Why can't you just say great job?
Yeah, you're undefeated.
Because then
good work.
That's coming 3 hours after these kids played.
Yeah,
And
they're
the
hard out.
message,
Yeah.
the message is, and it was kind of a rough game, right? They played our hometown, and we sat in our hometown stands, and it was rough. One of our friends was like, "Jenny, is this what your
Jenny
town
and I
was
from
like?"
the rough side of town.
I was like, yes, this was our life. Welcome. But that's the message. And this is a great coach. Like, I really think this coach is a great coach. He's an educator. He's a parent of young children.
Mm-hmm.
But even he is falling into the perfection myth,
Yep.
right? Why can't you just say, great game?
Yeah.
And I think technically coaches aren't allowed in our state or our state conference to say whether a JV team won or lost or what the score was.
Really?
Okay.
I did not know that.
So just say, it's a whole other issue. So just say, great game.
Yeah.
Don't even get into the point about how you weren't good enough. right? Because when you say, like, watching you improve.
That's something you say to a team that lost.
Yeah. Yes.
It really is. I'm a coach. I know
yes.
that.
Like it just, so we see this perpetuated, right? Yeah. Like educators are doing it. And I guess our child who got the not great grade, the teacher said, don't worry about it. Lots of kids are in the same boat as you, right? Yeah. Like that's a great message to send.
Absolutely. Well, because this author says, just like you and I talked about, life can be sometimes messy. It's during these times we learn and grow.
Yeah.
And you can have some adventure along the way, she says, which I couldn't agree with more. Like you learn from those mistakes, you learn from the errors, you learn from the messiness. And sometimes you can have joy from those. Like you can enjoy that process of realizing, oh, okay, I didn't do such a great job there. I wasn't perfect, but I learned this and I'm going to try that next time.
Well, but youth sports, right? Like we've had seasons and games where parents leave because their kid strikes out or because the other team has someone hit a home run or their kid's not playing the position they want or they're having a losing season. And so parents, we've seen it multiple times. Parents throw little temper tantrums and are like, I'm leaving. And sometimes they're like, come on, get your stuff, Johnny. We're going home. That's all about perfection, right?
Yeah,
like you can learn more in a losing season sometimes than you can in a winning season.
Absolutely.
And is it fun to lose? Is it fun when you mess up a play? No, but do you have to send the message that kids have to be perfect to be like approved by their coach or to be able to say you played well? I just think the perfection runs so deep in our culture.
Absolutely.
So deep.
It really, really does.
So deep. And we're still actively sending that message to the next generation, our kids' generation. And we need to work really, really hard to not do that. Because if you're out there right now and you're identifying any of this, you're like, ooh, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
I totally put that on my shoulders. I think you have to really ask yourself, am I passing this on to my kids? Because the answer is probably 100% yes.
Or if you are a coach or a teacher or you oversee people at your job, are you passing this on to them?
To them, right. Am I perpetuating this myth? What can I do? Because the answer is yes, we all are. Even those of us that like work in actively not being perfectionists are. I absolutely still am. Mm-hmm. What can we do to be more mindful about that and to not be so focused on perfection? And the answer really is to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Bite your tongue. And say the other thing.
To quote one of my favorite people, get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah. And share it. Mm-hmm. Right? Like don't be in the dark about your humanness, but be real. Share it with people.
The second point Jen makes in this article, perfection isn't authentic. Mm-hmm. When you're always striving to be perfect, you miss out on showing the world who you truly are.
Right.
She talks about years ago when I was in the throes of dieting and restriction, trying to be perfect in my eating and my body. I wasn't being true to myself. I was hiding from the world. That's so true.
So true.
Then she writes, your imperfect self is enough.
Yes.
Allow yourself to show up in the world as you are. When we've demanded perfection from ourselves for years, it can be scary to let go of our ideal and let the world see us as we are. And I guess that's my point in sharing my fitness journey on social media. I have a separate Instagram account. I don't share it everywhere. It's just, I don't think I have my actual name on there. It's just an account name. I'm sharing my journey, with certain hashtags like body. I don't
know. I don't go to your page.
Whatever.
Sorry.
But that's the point there, is to show the real journey that I'm on. And those are the types of pages I follow. Folks that have had weight loss or struggling or all that kind of stuff. That's important. You don't want to, you show the world who you are as you are.
Yes. So we're probably out of time, but this was, I wrote a micro about this the other day, Friday night. So if you go to my Facebook page and my Instagram, it's there in the recent photos and stuff. But then I created a meme out of it. A micro is a microblog, just a short little post. Let's stop pressuring ourselves and each other to be perfect Instead, let's meet in the middle with our beautiful imperfections and show each other and ourselves a bit more grace. Let's remind each other that none of us are perfect. And I think that's the way out, is to talk about it and to say, I'm not perfect and I don't expect you to be perfect. And here's how I'm not perfect. Tell me how you're not perfect, right? Because I love you because you're not perfect, because being imperfect is being real.
Right.
And anyone who is being perfect is not authentic.
Right. The final point this author makes, Jen Hand, in her article, which is entitled, by the way, Why Striving for Perfection is Actually Holding You Back. She says, perfection is stagnation. No one is meant to be perfect in any area of life, whether it's your body, relationships, personal growth, habits, or career, because in a perfect world, quote unquote, everything is stagnant. There is no growth, no evolution. Only through mistakes, missteps, and experimentation is that we learn and grow.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, why? Then what do? You reach perfection.
Well, then you realize that you're not happy.
Right.
And that's been my journey, right? Like I thought, like if I could just be perfect, I'll be happy. And I got a full scholarship, was valedictorian, lost a bunch of weight, became a resident advisor in my like second year of college. And guess what? I still wasn't happy. I was as close to perfect as I could be. And that's when I realized perfection is not the way to happiness.
Yeah.
The way to happiness is to like figure out who you are and just be that.
Yeah.
And are people going to like it? No.
Right.
Not everyone's going to like you. And if everyone does like you, that probably means that you're changing and you're not being your true self. Like you're being a version of yourself, right? So person A likes you and a different version. So person B likes you. If you're an authentic person, you probably can name a lot of people who don't like you. And that's okay.
I have definitely struggled with that.
Yeah.
I we've talked about that in other episodes, but for sure.
I do too.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm glad we finally did this topic.
I feel like we just scratched the surface. I feel like we could have talked for a couple hours.
I think we could do a whole podcast series on perfection.
Well, do you have anything else for today's episode?
I don't. I think we covered the big things here.
All right, everybody. Well, that is going to do it for today. Thank you so much for listening. For today's show notes links, you can check out the psychiatryonline.org article that I shared, as well as the Tiny Buddha article by Jen Hand. Don't forget, you can submit an iTunes review, and it will be featured on the show. We'll read it over the air. Tell your friends. Have them join the Changing Perspectives podcast family. Follow us on Facebook, everybody, at Changing Perspectives Podcast, and on Instagram at Changing Perspectives Blog. You can send us an email to info@changingperspectivesonline.com. You can also visit changingperspectivesonline.com, and while you're there, don't forget to visit the shop to check out all of that fall Changing Perspectives merchandise. And don't forget, you can find us on the Helium Radio Network Mondays, 6:30 Eastern on the Life Improvement Channel. Go ahead and subscribe to the show, everyone, so you'll never miss an episode, and we will see you next time. Say bye, Jenny.
Bye, Jenny.
The Changing Perspectives podcast is produced, recorded, and edited by Dizzy-Bird Studios. Copyright 2021. Please visit Dizzy-Bird Studios on Facebook, facebook.com/Dizzy-Bird Studios.